Okay, so let's take a look at this. So we have an EBITDA of 7.6, and we're in the Macros 5-year class. So that means our depreciation percent is going to be 20% this year. Next year it will be 32% and so on, but we really are only interested in the 20% that's occurring this year. So 20% of what? So we have an initial purchase and installation of 8. So under GAAP, both the purchase price and the installation costs are lumped together and depreciated as a unit. So we have initial cost of 8. And that means our depreciation dollars are going to be 20% of 8. And I'm going to hit F4 to lock that in because initial cost would be data that is separate from the calculations units in your set of cells that contain the given information. So with a depreciation of 1.6, then we can calculate the EBIT, which is just a subtotal of EBITDA minus depreciation. Get a value of 6. So next is to add tax. So we've got a 35% tax rate. We can ask what is the net income and what is the operating cash flow. So if we so we want to do calculate tax as 35%, figure out the tax dollars, subtract it off, get an income, and then add depreciation back as it's a non-cash charge to get operating cash flow. So go ahead and pause the video, give that a try, and I'll come back and I'll do it too, and we can verify that you got it. Okay, let's try it. So we have a tax rate of 35%. We can also sometimes put tax over here. The reason we might do that here is because the tax rate might change year to year. So as the project becomes more profitable, the tax rate increases. Often though, we just treat it as given information for the whole length of the problem. And then we need tax dollars. So tax dollars are 35% of. So the question is, what do we base our tax calculation on? And tax percent is 35% of pre-tax profit, or in other words, EBIT. Now this would be actually EBT, right? So we would subtract interest off first, but in this case we don't have any interest, so we don't need to subtract it off. But if we had interest in the problem and we were using the textbook approach, then we would remove interest here and then do tax 35% of EBT. But in this case we don't have to worry about that because there's no interest, so we have tax dollars there, and so we get net income of VIT minus tax dollars, 3.9. So we have 3.9 million of net income. We would also call those earnings. And so lastly, if we're interested in operating cash flow, we need to add back depreciation. So I'll put a depreciation dollars here and say net income plus, depreciation dollars is just depreciation dollars, and here is net income plus depreciation, and get 5.5 operating cash flow. So let's try the whole thing again. So here we're starting from revenue, and we're going to go all the way down. So we have 20,000 in revenue, fixed costs are 2, variable costs are 30%, a $30,000 asset on the Macro's 5-year scale and a 35% tax rate. We want to know what is the operating cash flow. So go ahead and try it. Pause the video and try it, and then when we come back, I will we'll check, make sure we got it right. Okay. So we have, and here we can actually just copy our map here. Right. So that was actually if you hold down Shift, so I located the box on this cell here. If you hold down Shift, you can draw a bigger box. And then I did Control C to copy. That's a good set of keyboard shortcuts that come in handy. Control V to paste, just like any other Windows program. So we have our map here, and we know that revenue is 20,000. We know that variable percent is 30%, right? That's what was listed in the problem. We have fixed cost of 2,000. So variable cost will be 30% of 20,000 or 6,000. And then EBITDA is our subtotal of these, so subtract them. We're in the same schedule, so depreciation is 20%. Depreciation dollars will depend on our initial cost, so we'll put that over here. Our initial cost was 30,000, so a $30,000 asset. So 20% of 30,000. We'll lock that in with F4. We have 6,000 in depreciation, meaning our EBIT is 6,000. We have 35% tax rate, which means our tax dollars are 2,100, and our net income is 3,900. We add back depreciation dollars and get operating cash flow to 9,900, which would mean of the 4 here, number 2 would be the correct answer. Right? We're between 8 and 10,000. So this would be the kind of question that we would do if we were meeting in person and we had a classroom response system. So you'd be tagging along in lecture, and we'd do I'd put this up on a slide, and then you'd have Socrative on the computer you were working on, and it would give us a nice graph of how everybody was doing. Because we're asynchronous and remote, we won't have that kind of experience, but hopefully you were able to accomplish this problem on your own, and that's going to be a good indicator that you know what you're doing in the first half of this lecture. So if for more practice, you can go ahead and try this one. So we've got revenue over many years and depreciation over many years, but you're asked just about the first year cash flow. So go ahead, and if you feel like you need more practice, go ahead and give that one a try, and I'll post a solution to this big question on the course Blackboard page. So the next step for this class is to talk about required financial statements and their analysis. So there really are several different kinds. So I'm going to pause the video now just so that we have a nice clean break in the parts, but when we come back, we'll talk about the different types of statements and how we might analyze them to essentially, in part to know how healthy companies are and to identify what they're good and bad at. So that's where we're going next, is thinking about the analysis of companies using their published financial statements.